Thanks everybody for joining us here this morning. I'm Adam Scarzafava, AVP for Edge Events and Digital Marketing here at Edge. Really excited to welcome you for today's session, the impact of AI on education. Obviously a trending topic and something that the whole community is really focused on. So I just want to set the table quickly here with a bit of context for Edge. If you don't know Edge particularly well and you're wondering why Edge is organizing this session today, I want to share a bit of information about us. We're a nonprofit, member-based research and education network and a technology consortium. We were founded around the turn of the century by the President's Council for Higher Education in New Jersey to serve as a technology partner and a support system for the institutions of higher ed so that they could be successful in the digital age. That mission has continued and grown and changed a bit as what technology means to the higher education community has changed, and as we have expanded our mission from serving the institutions of New Jersey to serving institutions throughout the region and indeed nationwide. The mission has also expanded a bit beyond the bounds of higher education. We serve K-12, state and local government, libraries, healthcare, other nonprofit organizations, really anyone with a public serving mission. Edge exists to help them in the effective use of technology, but the core, the real heritage of the organization, the core of what we do is really focused on higher ed and research and enabling those communities. How do we do that? So I mentioned we're a research and education network. That's what we were initially founded to do. And we still own and operate EdgeNet, our purpose-built optical fiber network. 95% of the institutions in New Jersey connect into that network, as well as now schools in Pennsylvania and New York as well. And we connect those institutions with resources and with other institutions across the country and internationally to do things like high-speed, high-performance collaborative research. Edge Discovery is that technology-based research and discovery framework that leverages EdgeNet and really serves as that opportunity for institutions to come together and effectively advance scientific research and discovery. Edge Market is our strategic informed consortium procurement arm. We operate a cooperative pricing system so that we're able to go out to RFP, not only on behalf of the institutions in New Jersey, but institutions nationwide, to centralize that procurement burden and be able to speed the time to onboarding and integration of key technologies for the higher education community. Events, networking, and community building, just like what we're doing here today. We also host live conferences. We'll be at Princeton University on January 9th for our next EdgeCon conference, our EdgeCon Winter, which is focused on data, AI, analytics, and some of those emerging technologies and how they impact higher ed. And we offer solution development and thought leadership ourselves as a nonprofit in certain areas, helping to advance digital transformation, advance cybersecurity, privacy, and compliance, cloud strategy, and online digital teaching and learning with value-added services at nonprofit rates and with our sort of inside higher ed perspective that we can work hands-on with institutions and help to solve some of those challenges that they're facing on the ground at an affordable rate that really helps to move the needle for those institutions. But with that, I will get out of the way and I will invite Dr. Lukman Ramsey to present and really get into the meat of today's content. And Dr. Ramsey, you have such an extensive and impressive bio. I don't want to step on it or ruin any of it. I'll let you share an introduction for yourself and get into the topic for today. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Adam, for the intro. I think Faro did copy and paste my bio into chat. So if you want to read about, kind of my background, you have it there. All I will say before I get started here is I've been at Google 8 years working in this space. Not exclusively, I do other things, but I certainly have a passion for education that goes back to, for myself, being part of the first core, the first charter core, if you will, of Teach for America. This goes, again, if I say this, it will date me immediately, but it was from 1990 to 92. I was a high school teacher, a high school math teacher in South Central LA. And since then, I've had a passion for education, and I've been able and fortunate to be able to continue that work here at Google. And I also have an academic background in AI, so it was very natural for me to think about how to apply AI, and in particular the Gen AI models that we're all familiar with now, that have kind of spurred this most recent revolution in AI that is, got all of our attention here for the past couple of years. So since that those models were first available, I was actually working on them here at Google to help provide support for teachers, support for students, to improve education, and lately have been focused more on improving and working on workforce development. So anyway, I'll go through this presentation relatively quickly. There will probably be things that I will have to skip due to time constraints. I do want to leave some time at the end for questions and discussion. I think that's really important here. So I'm definitely interested in hearing what folks think about this space, and being able to answer your questions directly. So I will leave time at the end for that. But without further ado, I will begin and tell you my perspective on the impact of AI in education based on my work here at Google, and even prior to that. I think the agenda here fairly summarizes actually my basic approach and stance on the impact of AI to education, which is to say that I think the right way to frame the problem and the way to think about this is that AI can help scale education and help to overcome the various bottlenecks that we run into when we're trying to scale education. And I'll be more specific about what I mean by that. And then I also think that AI has an important role to play in personalizing education. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means, and discuss some work we've done here recently at Google on AI systems for personalized education. If I have time, we'll get into these next couple sections. Again, it might be that those first three kind of occupy most of what we have to say. I do want to, if I have the chance, tell you about some of the work we're doing around AI for workforce development, because I think this is really important. And it is, maybe a way to phrase it is it's a clear demonstration of the impact of AI on education, the potential for that. So what do we mean by the problem of scaling education? Well, we all as educators are certainly concerned with improving the lives of our students through education. Certainly that's why we have all become passionate about this. This is why why we do our work. Education drives economic mobility, and we here at Google are trying to create innovative and relevant learning experiences that prepare our students for the workforce, both not just while they're in school, but also for lifelong learning. All right. So as folks go through their careers, we know that they will be changing careers. We know that they will have the need to reskill and retrain. And so education is here viewed, certainly in Google and by myself, as a lifelong endeavor. And the problem of scaling education, it doesn't just end when students matriculate or graduate from the institutions that we might be a part of. What are the bottlenecks? Well, we can kind of categorize them, I would say, into roughly three buckets. Educators themselves are a bottleneck, right? The lack of the sort of availability of educators, meaning the people, the humans that are really important in this process. They are overworked often, and they do not have the time or the energy necessarily to do all of the work that we're asking them to do to educate our children and to educate our students and as adults. And that's a problem. And we think that AI can really make a difference in that. Technology itself is a bottleneck in the sense that it takes a lot of effort and time and cost to develop technology for education. And AI actually has a huge role to play in making it easier to develop that educational technology. And then finally, educational materials. And by that, I mean, educational content, learning content, textbook content, um, assessment content, all of the direct materials that we put in contact with students, that we provide to students as educators to facilitate their learning. It takes a lot of cost and time and effort to prepare those materials. And moreover, it is very challenging for us as humans to do what we would love to do, which is prepare a personalized version of that content for every student. I mean, it's just not practical to do that. But yes, as educators, we know that um, every student's needs are different, and every student starts from a certain place in their journey and may have very different goals that they're trying to go to. And so all of these things are bottlenecks that AI can help us overcome. And this, I really believe, is a hugely important way of defining the problem of how AI impacts education. So just to go into a little more detail on some of these categories, again, as I mentioned, there are not enough human educators available, and we're all aware, probably, or many of you may be aware of this famous problem in education, the Bloom Two Sigma problem, where several decades ago, Professor Bloom did a study that showed that that personalized education can have a tremendous impact on student outcomes and success of students, to the point where personalized education, meaning that kind of education that can be provided by a one-on-one instructor, can have a 2 sigma impact on the learning outcomes for that student, meaning 2 standard deviations better than what you would expect if they did not have that personal instructor available to them. But of course, there are more than just teachers involved in the process. There are counselors, academic advisors, instructional designers, subject matter experts, graders, and on, right? I mean, education is a community activity, and all of these educators that I've named here are important for that process, and they are a limited resource. It is we don't have the ability to provide a counselor 24/7 for every student. That's just not possible. We don't have the ability to allocate instructional designers so that every student can have a personalized learning plan for where they're at in their journey. That curriculum could be created for that student. That's just not practical. There's certainly not anywhere close to enough instructional designers as it is, but certainly not one for every student that is there on demand to prepare instructional materials for that student. To highlight some of the technology bottlenecks, some which I've already touched on, because again, technology is involved in counseling and preparing that curriculum and creating delivering all of these things to students. Think about the kinds of immersive learning applications that we know are possible now. Those are extremely labor-intensive, costly, and expensive to build, and yet AI now is able to assist us in the creation of technology. In fact, as a software engineer, as a working software engineer, which I still am, I've had the fascinating, wonderful experience over the past year plus of learning how to use AI to write code. And anybody who's engaged in the software engineering profession now, including our seniors who are trying to graduate and enter the job market, will know that that's how the industry is operating now. It was extremely rapid adoption of these tools. Now, Sundar, our CEO, has announced in our last earnings call at Google that we are generating across Google over 25% of code using AI. So it's clear that AI can make a dent in this technology bottleneck. And then finally, as I said, educational materials themselves, very costly to produce, including formative assessment that allows students to practice what we've taught them and reinforce those concepts and help them acquire those skills. Curriculum in general, is very expensive to produce and takes a lot of time and effort to do. New programs, new academic programs don't get stood up overnight. And yet, if you think outside the box uh, about what could be possible for this, suppose it were possible to create a job-specific micro-credential that was, by definition, if you passed this credential, if you passed the final exam associated with this credential, you are qualified for that job. And maybe it's that the employer has been able to create this credential because of the power of AI. And so they are the ones who are specifying the standards, the requisite skills and knowledge that go into this credential. And then if you are able to pass this, then by definition, you are pre-qualified for that job. That's a vision that we are actively pursuing here at Google. And one of the many ways that we're thinking about how AI can impact, in this case, even more than education, really workforce development and workforce training. So just to kind of, pair up what we would think of as AI use cases for each of these problems, you can think of, AI tutors as a way to overcome the bottleneck around teachers, AI advisors to help make counseling and advising more available to students, AI generated learning content and assisted grading to help overcome the cost and time and effort that it takes to do that. The ability for AI to generate learning experiences, even on the fly, that are tailored and customized for a specific user, or to generate learning content itself. So when I say learning experiences, I mean, environments where the student can interact with the concepts and the skills that we're wanting them to learn, and as a sort of form of formative assessment. Learning content is a more general notion of like, hey, look, we have the job of producing at scale textbook content, video content, slides and images, all of the things, all of the materials that support the learning process. And so all of these things can be produced by AI. We believe as this occurs, it's just important for me to emphasize before I go any further that humans must be in the loop in all of this. It is not the case that we are advocating for us to cede or turn over the task of educating our citizens, educating our children to AI. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is having AI assist the humans to be able to scale themselves up and reach more students and provide more personalized education for those students. So that leads me kind of as a natural segue to the next topic here, which is personalizing education. How can AI have an impact on that problem? Well, let's first just consider what it is that makes learning personalized. In order to effectively personalize education, I would claim that we have to know what context the student is in at a given point in time in their learning journey. What are their learning goals? What is the current state of mastery of that student across the different skills and knowledge concepts that that they are trying to learn or that we are expecting them to learn? And of course, students are not just cognitive engines that acquire skills and knowledge. They are full-fledged humans that come with social, emotional, and personal context, which of course, as educators, we have to pay attention to, right? Meaning to know the student, to personalize an education experience for the student, we have to know about the whole student. How does that student feel about the concepts and skills that we're teaching them about? How do they feel about it? Are they confident? Are they enthusiastic? Do they have any anxiety? Are we trying to teach them something that years ago they acquired some self judgment about, or some sense that that they are not good at this? which is often the case. I think anybody who has been in the classroom knows this. Certainly math teachers do know this. Um, we have to know that as we're approaching the student, we have to know that context. If we want to be really effective and really personalized to that student, we have to know how they feel about what we're trying to teach them. And of course, any effective personal tutor who is in the room with the student, looking at looking at them and interacting with them directly, is using this information. Is using the cues that you get from a student as you're trying to teach them. If you say something to them and they flinch, or or they show some sign of anxiety, you need to know that, right? How does a chatbot know how the student feels about what this chatbot is saying to them? I think that's just a way to highlight it. Like, you're talking about a teacher in a box that is interacting only through a text-based medium in that case. It's a very limiting thing. It's amazing actually that the chat box can be as effective as they are. Although I would argue that's what I just said about the fact that this is kind of a teacher in a box that has actually no ability to see the student as the AI is talking to the student, makes it very, very hard. I mean, I can imagine, if you were trying to teach your students as a teacher through a chat interface, you would feel limited by this, and that's the same problem that the AI has. So we have to recognize that as we design these AI powered systems, that we need to give the AI the ability to, and the sort of the context for the full student and the full picture that exists in that learning environment. Ideally, that means having a camera that allows the AI to see the student as the student is engaging with the AI, just as a human teacher would really want that. There is a lot more, obviously, too, that influences students' success outcomes, including things that are completely outside the context of learning, such as family obligations and time and budgetary concerns or constraints. And it's important that we know that, right? I mean, if a human teacher was interacting with a student and they weren't able to come to the session because they had family obligations, uh, this would help the human teacher know more about that student, and I think the AI needs to know that as well. So it's not just, of course, about the context of this student, but as well, we have to be aware of the educational environment that we have available for that student, right? So all of us as educators exist in a context ourselves as educators that is provided typically by our educational institution, right? So we are part of an educational program or that has some associated curriculum with it. We have a predefined set of, typically a predefined set of learning materials and learning experiences and knowledge sources that we are chartered with, kind of inculcating and transmitting to the student. We have to pay attention to that, right? So this is sort of kind of connects back to this additional challenge of scaling that I mentioned earlier, that in an ideal world, we would have not so much limitations on all of these knowledge sources and programs and curriculum, and instead be able to design on the fly or on demand a personalized curriculum for that student, if it were possible to do that. And I'm telling you that AI makes this possible. And it's one of the real impacts that we think AI can bring to the table here. That is just not possible today with our current education system because of the lack of a teacher for every student. I mean, we are conditioned to accept a reality that has a ratio between teachers and students to be something more like 1 to 20 or 1 to 30 or 1 to, sometimes in the higher ed context, 1 to hundreds. Why couldn't it be the other way around? 30 teachers to 1 student. Why couldn't it be? Well, it's not nearly enough teachers. But yet with AI, we think we might be able to achieve that kind of vision. I also, and I'm sure, and the folks in this audience don't need convincing of this, but we know that as an education system, that these are the skills, the 21st century learning skills that I have on this slide that are really the most important ones for our students to learn. And yet we do not have curriculum that is designed to teach these things. Instead, these kinds of skills like problem solving, persuasion, teamwork, building a mind map, learning how to learn, metacognitive skills, are things that we kind of hope as educators that the students absorb along the way. Um, do any of you have a class in learning, meaning teaching students how to learn? I've never seen one. I'm sure they're out there. I'm not saying that nobody could ever do this, but it strikes me that we're kind of missing the boat here. We're not teaching students how to learn, and we kind of hope and expect that they have these skills. Or that they acquire them somehow organically. We call these things study skills sometimes. We cross our fingers and hope that our students have good study skills. But the students should be able to learn this from us, and it should be an explicit part of the curriculum. So this is another sort of challenge of scaling here. Like, how do we build curriculum for these 21st century skills, and then how do we measure the progress that students are making on these skills, which are the most important skills that we want to teach them. I mean, it's probably, these are things that are most correlated with their success in life. We know this, right? It's not something that we don't know. It's just that we haven't organized our educational process and our educational system to teach these things. And so this is another opportunity, I think, for AI to help us by being able to create curriculum on demand that is focused on these 21st century skills. I just want to really emphasize and mention that when I speak about all of this, the Google AI principles that were enumerated many years ago, actually, by Google. This is a blog post that came out in 2018, where we enumerated all these principles that are important for making AI accountable to people, being safe with AI, being socially beneficial, being tested for safety, avoiding as best we can having the AI create or reinforce unfair bias, incorporating privacy design into our system so that we don't have any case of somehow someone's private information being leaked through the AI somehow. I mean, again, we want our students to be able to be open with the AI. If the AI is serving as a counselor or an advisor, we would hope that the student could say anything that they want to say to the AI, but that creates a very, that means that we have to be very careful about privacy. We have to uphold high standards of scientific excellence, meaning whatever we do has to be measured very carefully so that we know that it has a positive impact, because it is possible with the use of AI to actually have a harmful impact. I would point to some recent studies that have come out that have shown that students that have access to ChatGPT did worse on the same cohorts, in a controlled environment, of students that did not. That's the last thing we would want for our students, to give them a tool that actually degraded their learning, that by giving them the answers, right? That is not what we're trying to achieve here with AI. We certainly are not trying to create a world where, the introduction of this technology somehow degrades learning progress for our students. If we're doing that, then obviously we're doing it wrong, and we need to start over. You have to be careful about how you design things. You cannot design a system that is optimized for giving students the answers. and not forcing them to come up with the answers themselves, right? That kind of goes without saying. I think any educator would recognize that, if I'm providing, the answer key to my students for everything that I give them, I might not be doing them, a service here. I might not be actually helping them to learn. In fact, I might just be making it easier for them to get through the course. So these are all extremely important principles that are our North Star in everything that we do here at Google. And we're very open and public about this and have been for many, many years. And I can't emphasize this enough as our guiding principles for how we operate. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more detail about what we mean by personalized education, and can I give you a little bit of perspective on how I think about the design process that I mentioned. I have about 15 more minutes here before I'm going to stop this talk and open it up to questions here. So I move through some of this material quickly because there's a bunch of extra things I want to show you, and I actually want to give you a live demo of a tool that we have created here at Google recently for personalized education that we're very excited about. That is not public, so it's going to be sort of a privileged demonstration for you here on this call. But we're open about the work that we do. We want everybody to know about it. So I'm able to do that to show you guys this thing. So I'll anyway, just to give a little more context about how we think, or how I think certainly, about tutoring. There are two types of tutoring, AI tutoring in general. If you wanted to build a personalized AI tutor for a student, you can think about it in sort of these like big, roughly speaking, big two ways. One is that you have something called the outer loop, which is the process of guiding the student as to what they should be learning next. Say, what is the thing that as you go through this journey as a learner, that you should be focusing on from a prioritization standpoint next, given your constraints on time and on the goals that you're trying to achieve. And so that's what I would call an outer loop tutor, right? It's not actually there to teach per se. It's really there to help guide the student to say, okay, this is what you should be focusing on next, because these are the important concepts that are going to be showing up on your midterm next week, for example. And then, of course, we do care about providing instruction to students, and if we can do that through AI in an effective way that, according to our scientific measurements, produces an increase in mastery and not a decrease, then we should do that. And that kind of tutor or AI mediated system is I would call an inner loop tutor that provides instruction. And so, just to kind of provide more, fleshed out picture of what I'm talking about here, an outer loop tutor will be typically asked to solve problems like task selection, meaning what's the next thing that I should be doing literally with my time to increase my learning. Doing things like adjusting the difficulty level dynamically as the student progresses, because pedagogically we know that it's important for the student to be in the zone of proximal learning, right? So if we giving them material that is too far away from where they are now, then they're going to struggle to learn it, right? But if we give them something that's too easy for them, they're also not going to learn very well. So there's a zone, the sweet spot, the zone of proximal learning, where learning is going to be maximized, and we need to be able to dynamically adjust that as the student increases their mastery. Concept sequencing is also important, right? You can't, there's certain prerequisites and certain orders in which you have to learn things. You can't learn the sort of the final skill until you've learned some of the sub skills in many cases, right? You can't understand the complex big picture concept without understanding some of the sub concepts and some of the examples that help us to provide the context for that concept. So there's a lot of sequencing challenges in learning, and the outer loop tutor can provide guidance and support for that for the student. And these parts of that task selection and difficulty adjustment, are examples of, areas where knowing what the student is trying to do or what their goals are or where their current state of mastery are opportunities for us to provide that personalization. Concept sequencing as well is I'm not saying that that's not, able to be personalized. It can be, but in some sense, the sequence is the sequence, meaning the fact that a student is an advanced student just means that they're farther along in the sequence, and we have to know where they are in the sequence. But it's less. It's more dependent. The sequence is more dependent on the skill and the concept itself rather than the student. The interloop tutor, here's kind of a bit more detailed breakdown of kind of what these things can do, provide step-by-step guidance, provide immediate feedback to students, as we know too. Again, this kind of goes back to sort of the principle of proximal learning. If you have that feedback available right away, right when you attempt the problem, as opposed to after you've attempted the problem, written down your answer, submitted the assignment, waited for the professor to grade that assignment and then provide you the feedback. If you can get that feedback right away, that's going to help you learn. Error-specific help, meaning, here's why I think you may have gone wrong here based on what you answered, and that may indicate that you have a misconception here. So let me drill into that. That kind of thing. Yeah, you want basically to personalize the experience of a student by paying attention to what mistakes they make. Offering hints and explanations. Obviously, if the student is struggling or I hit a wall, it's not doing the student any good to just say, okay, it's done, let's move on. But you'd like to be able to provide them hints and guidance to keep them going and progressing. And then finally, as the student progresses through their learning journey, we want to use evidence that we gather from the students' interaction with these kinds of tutoring systems to inform, I'm just checking the time here, that's why I'm looking up, to inform learning progress. So all of these, really, all of these things are opportunities for personalization, and it is in these sort of interloop tutors where we can do the most personalization. I'm going to show you one more slide, and then I'm going to switch for the last 5 minutes or so to a demo of this personalized learning system that we've been working on here that I can show you very, very briefly, just to kind of give you an example of a system that respects these principles, that is that we've attempted to design to kind of, bring all of this perspective and knowledge together, and how we can use AI to personalize education. It is important that we understand the level of mastery for a given student at a given point in time for a given topic or subject or skill or concept. And the way that we do that, and this is not, and it's something that we have invented here. It's based on techniques like item response theory and deep knowledge tracing that have been around for a while. We have been able to build those modeling techniques into our infrastructure, into the tools that we built here, that allow us basically to use the evidence that we get from the students interacting with these tutors to accumulate a picture of mastery for that student. Where are they, and how do they progress through that learning journey as they encounter or use our system? And this allows us then to better personalize the experience for the student. It may be that we just don't have enough evidence to know whether a student knows concept X or skill Y. And so because of that, we say, here's some practice problems in this area, just so we can understand better where you're at with that particular skill. When the student engages with that, then we will get some evidence, and then we'll be able to incorporate that in whatever comes next for the student's interaction with the tool. So I'm going to close with a demo here, and just tell me if everybody can see this personalized learning system, just because I want to make sure that the
Yes.
Zoom. Okay, very good. Thank you. So this tool, when you look at it, you land on it, it kind of looks a bit like YouTube. This is a reason for that. We know that YouTube is I'm sure anybody who has used YouTube for their own learning purposes is aware of this, that YouTube is an extremely powerful tool for learning, and it's become an extremely popular tool here that we have at Google for learning purposes. But one thing you might say about YouTube is that it's only for video. That's fair to say, right? It's not designed to play other types of content. What we've done here is basically kind of added these different media types to YouTube so that the system can play not just video content, but textbook content, slides and images and so on. All of the things that we care about from a learning material standpoint, including very critically assessment. So in this tool, we have the ability to provide practice problems for a student that can be scored by AI, basically to provide feedback. So this example, as you can see, is kind of a sort of a lesson in the form of a playlist, which we call a personalized learning plan. So that PLP, that personalized learning plan, is our name for this playlist. We're able to create these playlists on demand for a student in a personalized way. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. But let me just give you an example of what the tool can do. If I try to answer a question here, and I always forget the answer to this question, what are the two main divisions of the nervous system? I'm going to say the brain and the spine, and check my answer. And yeah, it's giving me some good feedback. So I didn't really get the answer that it was looking for here. So that's incorrect, but I'm on the right track. The brain and the spine are important parts of the nervous system, but they're actually part of a larger division called the central nervous system. The other main division is the peripheral nervous system, which includes all the nerves that branch out from the CNS. That feedback, by the way, was generated just now by the LearnLM model that sits under this system. LearnLM, by the way, is a class of learning models that Google has developed. We have announced this publicly. This is not secret information that are optimized for learning. And so they're based on Gemini, but they add specific capabilities that are really helpful for learning, like the ability to give really helpful feedback to students when they attempt problems. So very quickly, I'm going to show you how you can create a new lesson using this tool. These topics that you see here can be recommended to the student, right? So it knows that I'm in a unit on neuroscience in an anatomy and physiology class, and that this topic of what are dendrites is pretty relevant to what I'm supposed to learn this week in my class. So I can create a lesson on dendrites on demand. And I can do this as an educator and then push that lesson to my students. Or I can do this just as a student. I want to learn about dendrites. I want this lesson at the beginner level because I haven't encountered this concept before. I want a certain reading level. I'm going to ask for extensive AI assistance because, again, this is my first encounter with the topic. And I'm only going to ask for a 4-minute lesson because I just want a quick overview to get me going on this topic so that then I can dig deeper and follow up with more practice and drill in. And so this personalized learning system, given all of those parameters, has generated for me what amounts to a lesson in dendrites with short snippets of text, right, so that I can consume them quite rapidly. They're all drawn from content that has been provided by the educator. So again, we want to keep the educator in control of this process. We don't want to have the educator ceding their ability to determine what relevant content is to be supplied to the students. As a teacher of anatomy and physiology, I want, if you're coming to my class, I want you to learn, my version of anatomy and physiology. It's based on the textbook that I have chosen with my lecture notes, my lecture videos, and my approach. And you can also have this system have access to all of the content. But we find that for educators, what has resonated most about this tool, or one of the things that has resonated about this tool, is that it allows a student to do what an educator has to do, which is to create personalized learning plans based on a predefined corpus of content that's associated with the course that I'm teaching. And so I have diagrams here. I have little mini snippets of content, including videos that are part of the pre-curated content. I have again some generated and curated approved assessment items, and this should allow me to improve my learning of this concept or any other concept that's associated with this course in a way that's personalized to me. I could go much deeper and longer on this tool, but I do want to give us and you all some time to ask me any questions or drill into anything that you've seen here that I've talked about in a deeper way. So with that, I will pause and I'll actually even stop sharing my screen for a minute here. If I need to pull this back up, I can. Yeah, tell me, what you think, what you saw, any other questions, comments, concerns. Happy to answer those.
Yeah, so we did have a few questions come in, and thanks, Dr. Ramsey, for a great walkthrough there. The first, and maybe we'll work backwards because one of the most recent we got, I think, was on the demo here, and it was, how is this different from the old programmed instruction conceptually?
I would say that the key difference here is we're allowing the student to kind of craft their own mini lessons. So, normally, we kind of provide all of this to the student. And it's, by the way, at great effort, right? It takes a bit of work to craft lessons. And particularly if you're tasked with the job of crafting them for a specific difficulty level and an amount of time, right? It's not easy to do that, right? So that's the power. And again, this is a tool that's intended to be used not just by students, but also by educators, right? I mean, they sort of both have the same problem, right? Here, I have a bunch of content. I have a bunch of stuff that I'm supposed to teach. How do I do all of that? What I didn't show was just, normally I would spend maybe 15, 20 minutes demoing this tool, is that you have, and I don't know if my screen's back up here.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. You have the skills and the knowledge that are pertinent to this particular context also as part of this. And I can pick one of these concepts. Again, this is a mock-up here. This is a, tool is still in development. And just to, kind of, in case anybody has the question, this is a tool that's in development. We are obviously demoing this now to customers and folks. So this is not the first time that I've done this. I've done this many times. We're being, open about it, but it's not yet quite ready for adoption. We are planning on piloting this with selected institutions in the spring. And the hope is that by the fall, we would be able to do the first kind of the deployments here. It may be over ambitious, but if someone on the call were interested in piloting this with us, please do reach out, and we'll see what we can do. We don't have an unlimited capacity to engage in pilots, but it's it's possible that we might be able to include your institution in this this pilot program.
And you anticipated one of the other questions there because it was, is this tool something we as instructors are able to access? So you got ahead of that one. We have another question here. Say a high school bio teacher asked to generate a lesson. Will each teacher get the same response with the only variable being in beginner, advanced, etc.? Or can it be modified by adding things like nervous systems in specific animals?
Yeah, great question. So the way we have initially constructed this, we feel like determinism is actually a desirable trait, meaning that if you put the same context, the same prompt, the same request in, you'll get the same output. But as you know, if you've interacted with Gen AI, part of what you can do is provide nuance, right? Like, I want a lesson, but I want you to tilt it more to this topic. And one thing I didn't show again here is actually you have the ability to just type in what you want, right? So Here I'll use another example. Create a podcast for me on homeostasis. And then again, I'm going to go through the quick little set of steps. It's going to be a 2-minute roughly podcast. You may have seen this demo. This has been one of the capabilities that people got really excited about for a product called Notebook LM, which you may have been able to use. This podcast was generated by Gen AI. The script and the voices and everything is all completely AI generated. Let me just play just 10 seconds of it for you.
Welcome back to The Body Electric, the podcast that dives deep into the amazing world of human biology. Today, we're exploring a concept that's fundamental to our very existence, homeostasis. To help us unpack this intricate system, I'm joined by Dr. Phoenix Bell, a leading...
Anyway, it goes on for a couple more minutes, as you can see. But yeah, it's a kind of thing that, when you're talking about, hey, personalization includes, what modality is easiest for me as a student to consume at that moment in time. And I might be off, just about to embark on my daily commute. And I just want to have a podcast that gives me the lesson that I'm looking for to help me prepare for my midterm next week, right? So this is, we think, this is a kind of really useful way to employ AI.
Is the demo we're showing here available to the public? Would a demo have to be scheduled, or how if institutions are interested in following up?
We would have to schedule that. So it's not a tool that we have available to the public right now. But as I said, it's still in development. A lot of what you see here is still being worked on. And as I said, from a sort of scheduling standpoint, we plan on piloting this with students in the spring with some selected institutions. And then our hope is that this is available as a tool for those, probably just for those early institutions in the fall semester. But it is not too early to start the conversations. I know that, adopting a tool like this for a school, it takes a bit of planning and work. And so we're happy to engage with anybody who's interested in this, this approach. But it might be that, it takes a bit of time still to develop and make it available to your institution.
A few other questions here, and we're getting close to time. And I want to ask this one because it's a big one, and I think certainly on lots of folks' minds in the higher ed community. Given that these AI tools are coming from for-profit companies that are beholden to stakeholders, how do we expect to help underserved and under-resourced institutions that do not maybe have the funding to access these resources? Could this end up being another situation like internet access, where the haves will have access and the have-nots may be left behind?
I really appreciate that question. And, this is something very near and dear to my heart. I think that we already have this situation. There are paid versions of all these tools that provide better capability, and not everybody can afford $20 a month. So one of the ways that we're addressing that is to make this tool available at a very low price point. But there are other things that we are thinking about, and it's maybe too early to get too specific about this, but it is my belief and hope that this technology should be made available in a way that allows all students and all institutions to take advantage of it. And Google this is very much in line with Google's mission as well. I have a lot of my colleagues here at Google who agree with that sentiment. And so we're working on a way to make that possible. It's again a bit early for me to give anything more specific than that, but I really appreciate the question, because you're absolutely right. It's not just the availability of AI that where we come into this, but really I think it's fair to say that the way that the higher ed system is currently constructed, it inherently creates a system of haves and have-nots. There's a ton of expense associated with requiring an education in this country, and not everybody has the money to do that. And moreover, you have folks that have the money, but it's in the form of debt, and that just adds to their burden after they've acquired this education, or even worse, they paid for it and then didn't get the degree, which happens to a huge percentage of students that we deal with. So that's not good for society. It's not good for anybody. And we're really focused on making equitable access to this technology available to all students, all institutions, all educators. That is a big part of my mission personally.
Great. Thanks for the thoughtful response on that one. Time for probably a couple more quick ones, I think. One here, do you have a Google certification for instructional designs or chief online learning officers to take to get ahead of AI tools and instruction?
So yes, there are programs that are being developed under Grow with Google that are pointed exactly at that for educators. It's not my group, and I would just point you to Grow with Google. That's probably the easiest way to go learn more about this. Also, google.org, which is a really philanthropic part of Google. In fact, google.org actually has 1% of Google's revenue as its budget. 1% of Google's annual revenue goes to google.org and is invested in all kinds of, that's actually a decent amount of money to play with every year. So some of those programs and some of that money has been invested in exactly that problem, because it is a huge problem. Educators need to be educated too. This technology is extremely powerful. It's going to change the way everybody works. It's going to, including ourselves as educators. It really will. It already is happening. I'm sure you know this, but we're just at the beginning. And so it's very important for us all to be comfortable, to be confident, to be versed and literate in AI. And we understand that that's a challenge, and I spend a lot of my time trying to remediate that, and this webinar is part of that. This is why I like to do these things, because I think it's helpful. So Google is very much focused on this problem, and I would just point you to Grow with Google and google.org to find out more.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. So that actually brings us to the 1 o'clock hour. I think we had a couple more come in as we were chatting. We'll make sure to take a look at those and be able to get a response out to those that asked that question in follow-up. And we're going to have to, I think, cut it here. But thanks so much, everyone, for spending the time with us here today. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey, for sharing your time and sharing your expertise and sharing the demo with the group, and taking so many of these really great, really thoughtful questions from everybody. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Adam and Farrell, for the opportunity to speak today. And again, I'm decently easy to find on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me directly if you want to have any follow-up about any of these things. Google is here to help, and we understand the moment that we're in here for all of us as educators, and we really want to make AI have a positive impact on education. And I think now you understand, maybe from, at least from my perspective, how this might play out. So thank you again. Thanks for everybody for your time.
Thanks so much. And everyone, you can expect the recording of the session to be shared early next week. So keep an eye out for that as well. And we'll share some contact information and things like that there too for next steps. So thank you so much, everybody, for spending the time today. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.